नमः अत्र उपस्थितेभ्यः पंडितेभ्यः कविभ्यश्च विशेषतः सुन्दरेश्वरन् महाभागेभ्यः गणेश महाभागेभ्यः बलराम शुक्ल अनुजेभ्यः बलराम शुक्लेभ्यश्च। अधुना काचन भीतिरिव जायते मनसि शतावधानिनां काव्यानां पुरतः तस्य काव्यानि विमृशतो मे। On one hand, I feel great happiness in discussing about the poetry of Shatavadani or Ganesh. On the other hand, I am also very apprehensive inside, discussing or analyzing his poems, analyzing the poems of such a great scholar and a Kavi. I will do it to my Shakti, Yathashakti Prayatishe. I have titled my talk as Ganeshasya Kavir Vacham Ananyak Shunna Markata, 2 padas of an Anushtuk. And why I have titled it so will be clear as we proceed further. Yeah. So this is the flow of my talk. Some of you might know who Shatabdani are Ganesh is, but a few of you might not. So I thought it would be right to start with an introduction to the poet himself and his works. Then I shall go to certain works which I have chosen for this particular talk. Not all of his works have I chosen for this talk because he has produced a legion of works, and not all works are. It's not possible to discuss all these works within the short span of a talk. So I have chosen specific works. So I'll list them um, during my talk. Then I shall discuss about the heading, the title of my talk, Ananyak Shunna Margata. And I feel that Ananyak Shunna Margata is the defining feature of Ganesh's poetry. And in a way, I would translate this as experimentation and exploration of untrodden paths. Next, I shall also discuss about how, in spite of Ananyak Shunna Margata, there is always a foundation of tradition. There is always a backdrop of tradition in which his works are composed. So how does he blend Ananyak Shunna Margata with tradition? How does he blend innovativeness with tradition? So I shall discuss that later with an example. And then Ananyak Shunna Margata at the level of form and content. So I discussed this specific feature of Ganesh poetry, which is Ananyak Shunna Margata, at the levels of both Artha and Shabda, form and content, with chosen examples. And finally, I shall share with you translation of a few personally favorite verses composed by Ganesh. So this will be the flow of the talk. This is um, a recent photo of Shatabdani Ganesh. Shatabdani Ganesh is not just a poet, but he also guides several people in writing poetry. He has been a mentor to several people in writing poetry. He has taught important aspects of poetry such as Alankara and Chandas to an interested group of people. And he also conducts several study groups. One of these study groups which I have been regularly visiting is the Raghuvamsha study group. And I think it has been running for the past almost a decade or so. And it began with the study of Raghuvamsha, but now it has progressed further. Raghuvamsha, we have finished Raghuvamsha, and then we had a discussion of Shudraka's Mrichakatika and Mudra Rakshasa. And at present, we are discussing a text on Chanda Shastra as well as Madhura Vijayam of Ganga Devi. So this is a glimpse of, this is a photo of the previous class in this Raghuvamsha group. He also conducts weekly Ashu Kavita Goshtis, where several of us meet together and compose verses on the spot, extemporaneous verses on various topics, which we pick from a lot. And this is the glimpse of the last Ashu Kavita Goshti. As you see, several of us have gathered together and are basically musing about a particular thought and how to convert it into poetry. So to give a brief introduction of Shatabdani Ganesh, he was born in Kolar, Karnataka on December 4th, 1962. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in metallurgy and Sanskrit. As far as I know, there is no great tradition of Sanskrit in his family, and that that also shows the greatness of Ganesh, that he cultivated Sanskrit poetry on his own, and he is not basically from a Sanskrit academic background, but from an engineer background. He holds a D.Litt from Hampi University on the topic Kannadadalli Avadhana Kale. He is an Avadhani, an Ashtavadhani as well as a Shatavadhani, and his D.Litt was on the topic Kannadadalli Avadhana Kale. Avadhana, the art of Avadhana in the Kannada language. He also has an honorary doctorate from Tumkur University. Most importantly, he is a master of the ancient art of Avadhanam. I don't know how many of you have had the good fortune of watching an Avadhanam. I have been a Prichaka in several of his Avadhanams and also enjoyed several of his Avadhanams. Avadhanam is an ancient literary art where the key figure is an Avadhani. And in this case, Ganesh is a Shatavadhani and an Ashtavadhani. And he faces a group of 8 or 100 Prichakas. Prichakas are people who ask the Avadhani questions on various subjects. And the Avadhani responds to them either creatively or by performing certain memory-based tasks. So he comes up with extemporaneous poetry as answers to the questions posed by Prichakas. And some of these tasks are also memory-based. For example, throughout an Avadhanam, it is possible that somebody will be ringing a bell. And after 3 hours, when the Avadhana finishes, the Avadhani out of memory has to tell how many times the bell was rung. And this he has to do in midst of composing poems and answering to the other Prichakas. So that's a very difficult task. Next, he has performed Avadhanam not just in Sanskrit. He performs usually Avadhanams in Kannada, but he also has performed several Avadhanams in Sanskrit, as well as in Telugu and Prakrit. He has an abiding interest in Indian culture, especially in its Sahitya, the various kalas, Sahitya Shastra, Alankara Shastra, and the Darshanas. He is a recipient of the Badarayana Vyasa Puraskar from the President of India and the Rajyotsava Prashasti from the government of Karnataka. He is presently a honorary director of Gandhi Center, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And most importantly, he is an editorial advisor of Preksha, which is an online journal of culture and philosophy. It's an online journal which has articles on various aspects of Indian culture, literature, etc. And you have articles on a day-to-day basis, not just once in a week or so. There are articles, fresh articles that are put on this online journal every day, and very deeply researched articles. So this is a glimpse of Ganesh as an Avadhani. As you see, Ganesh is sitting in the middle. He is the Avadhani, and surrounding him are the Prichakas, the questioners, 4 on the right side and 4 on the left. And I am one of them, the one with the pink colored dress, pink colored shirt. To give an idea of the works which Shatavadhani Ganesh has composed, he has composed more than 60 works in Sanskrit, Kannada, and English. And one of the most recent works was The Art and the Science of Avadhanam in Sanskrit. It is a sequel to his thesis, Kannadadalli Avadhana Kale. But The Art of Science and Avadhanam, this text basically takes examples from Sanskrit, not from Kannada. And it's co-authored with Shashi Kiran. I shall list out some of his Sanskrit writings because those are pertinent for the present talk. There are certain original works and some translations. The original works include Madhusatma. Madhusatma is basically a beehive, and this is a collection of poems as well as plays, and has several examples of Chitrakavya. He has also composed a play called Vanita Kavitotsava, and it is it's new in its format because it has all Sanskrit poetesses as characters, and it has verses by those poetesses. So there is a contextual background which the poet has provided for these to bring together the verses composed by these Sanskrit poetesses. Several Sanskrit poetesses such as Vichika, Indulekha, etc., and Ganga Devi also. A hymn in praise of Mother Goddess called Sri Chakreshwari Stava, Vaiphalya Phalam, which is a Khandakavya with 133 verses in the 15-syllable Malini meter. The theme of Vaiphalya Phalam is Menaka Vishwamitra Samagama, the union of Menaka and Vishwamitra, the birth of Shakuntala and the adoption of Shakuntala by Kandva. Yaugandharam, which is a collection of two co-composed Khandakavyas, which have been co-composed with another poet, Shashi Kiran. And I'm very happy and regard myself as very fortunate because Ganesh has dedicated Yaugandharam to me. The two Khandakavyas that make Yaugandharam are go to make Yaugandharam. These are Ramanuraganalam and Vatsalya Gopalakam. Ramanuraganalam has 133 Vasanta Tilaka verses, and the story is borrowed from Uttarakanda, the story of Sita being banished to the forest by Rama. But what is new about Ramanuraganalam is that the main character here, the focus is not Sita. Usually the Uttarakanda, any work that focuses on the story of Uttarakanda has Sita as gives a lot of importance to Sita rather than Rama. But here in Ramanuraganalam, the poet's focus is Rama basically. What was the emotional turmoil that Rama underwent after having abandoned Sita? And the second Khandakavya in Yaugandharam is Vatsalya Gopalakam, which is a Khandakavya with 120 verses in Utpalamala and Champakamala meters. These meters are not very famous in the Sanskrit fraternity. These are meters in which usually Kannada poets, classical Kannada poets and classical Telugu poets compose verses. They use it very frequently. Utpalamala is a 20-syllabled vritta and Champakamala is a 21-syllabled vritta. And the story, the Vatsalya Gopalakam, the theme is also quite new. It is on the meeting of Yashoda and Krishna after several years in the Syamanta Panchaka Sarovara during the Surya Grahana. Then you have Rutu Kalyanam, which is a Champu Kavya with quite a number of verses, 376 verses interspersed with Gadya Bhagas. It's written in a very typical Champu format with all its classicality. The only difference is that the theme is quite novel. It is in the form of a samvada, a dialogue between a pati and a patni on rutus, on various seasons as they manifest in a modern city like Bangalore. And the final work which I shall discuss today, some of these works are which I will be discussing. One of the important works is Shatavadani Rachana Sanchayam, also named as Saptapadinam. It has been published by Central Sahitya Academy and has a foreword and has an essay by Balram Shukla. It is an anthology of several verses collected under 6 headings. Sumanomayam on various flowers. Several of these flowers don't find mention in classical poetry at all. It is to the credit should be given to Ganesh for composing verses on these several new flowers. Agramyam, which is on rural life, poems on rural life. Mostly these poems are in the Shardula Vikridita meter. Ujjwala Jwala, which is on love from the perspective of a woman. Bhavaitri, Ananyokti, Mukta Shukti, and Shatavadhana Shakvari. Shatavadhana Shakvari is a collection of poems which he composed, verses which he composed during this Shatavadhana. And you have translations, Haribhakti Sara and Ramadhanya Charitam. Both Haribhakti Sara and Ramadhanya Charitam are translations of Kannada works by the Bhakti saint Kanakadasa. Allama Vachanani, which is a translation of Vachanas by the Veerashaiva saint Allama Prabhu, and Mahabrahmana, which is a translation of a Kannada novel called Mahabrahmana by Devudu on the life of Vishwamitra. So this is a brief introduction of his works. So these are the works I have chosen for this present talk. Shatavadhani Rachana Sanchayam, Vanita Kavitotsava, Yaugandharam, Vaibhalyapalam, Rutu Kalyanam, and the art and science of Avadhana in Sanskrit. I began with saying that the defining feature of Ganesh's poetry is what we could call as Ananya Kshunna Margata, chartering new territories, exploring new territories. So before I actually discuss about Ananya Kshunna Margata in Ganesh's poetry, let me begin with a verse from Mankha. And I think this applies very appropriately to Ganesh. And Mankha was also in a sense Avadhani, and Ganesh is also an Avadhani. And as I went through some of his verses, I feel that Mankha comes very close to Ganesh in thought. I think I will discuss this with him sometime later, but this was what I felt, that Pankha is a classical poet who I think is quite close in his thinking to Ganesh. This is one of his verses. Sarvas sancharate patha parakavigramasya kaschittusa shlagya swapratipadanasya mahatah prakranta divyavyayah yad vishranita navya vangmaya brihat setu pratishthadu jusho visrambhat bahavastaranti gahane sarasvata srotasi. So this is a verse from Shrikanta Charita. I have typed it wrongly. It's not Shrikanta Vijaya, Shrikanta Charita, from the second canto of Shrikanta Charita. And the translation goes as follows. Everyone who is desirous of composing poetry treads the path which the village of or which the society of other poets has laid out. So every new poet follows a past poet, follows a path which has been laid out by a poet of yore. But then there is one praiseworthy man who puts the immense wealth of poetic genius to incredible use. And such a praiseworthy man in front of us is Ganesh. His gift to the world is a poetic masterpiece, a colossal bridge with whose help many people confidently cross the deep stream of literature, or the deep stream of river Saraswati. There is a Shlesha in this verse. So Ganesh is such a poetic genius, such a praiseworthy poet, whose works are indeed masterpieces, and which are like bridges with the help of which one can cross the deep stream of Saraswati. So how would we actually locate Ganesh among contemporary Sanskrit poets? So this is a working classification that I came up with to place Ganesh among contemporary poets. We could classify contemporary poets probably into these three groups: a traditionalist, and I consider myself as a traditionalist, a non-conforming traditionalist. This might seem like an oxymoron, but I would like to place Ganesh among the non-conforming traditionalists, and we have several non-conformists. So who is a traditionalist? A traditionalist is often guarded in his approach. He does not want to venture beyond the territory with which he or she is familiar. He or she conforms to tradition in form and also in content, because his or her content is mostly inspired by tradition. He or she also attempts new experiments, but these new experiments can be regarded as a tapping of possibility, which are naturally inherent in the tradition. So there might be experiments. For example, Chitra Naishadam, which Mrs. Jayalakshmi was referring to, is one such work. But I wouldn't say that it is something very new. I wouldn't say that it is a new possibility that has been found out within the tradition. I would consider that as a possibility that is naturally inherent in the tradition. So you have several Gomutrika verses. So this Chitra Naishadam is composed entirely in the Gomutrika Bandha. Even in the tradition, you have several Gomutrika verses scattered here and there. We have Gomutrika verses starting from Bharavi, then you have Kumaradasa, Magha, etc., who have composed these stray Gomutrika verses. What I have done is to borrow the form of Gomutrika and compose an entire poem in using that Gomutrika Bandha. And I feel that that is just a natural extension of a possibility which is there already in the tradition. Also, I have composed this Nipuna Pragunakam, which is a play. And I wanted to actually put it under a particular category. There are the Dasharupakas, the 10 main forms of drama, which many of you have heard. And one of them is Bhana. Even before I wrote Nipuna Pragunakam, I had this idea of Bhana in my mind. I wanted to actually compose a play which could easily fit into the description of a Bhana. The theme might be very new. Actually, the theme has been borrowed from Bollywood. So the story is basically from Bollywood that I have borrowed. But other than that, in the entire delineation of the story, in the way I describe situations, and the way I have fit all this within the umbrella of Bhana, everything shows that I am a traditionalist, and I am not very experimental in that sense. On the other hand, Ganesh is a non-conforming traditionalist. He is more experimental. I would surely say that he is more experimental than me, and he's more daring in that sense. He's not guarded. And why is he still a traditionalist? Though he is non-confirming, he's still a traditionalist. Why is it so? Because when he is not confirming in form, there is always something about the content that indicates rootedness in tradition. And this is true when we look at it vice versa also. So when he's not confirming with respect to content, there is still something in the form that indicates that he is rooted in tradition. So this shows that he might be non-conforming, but there is always something in his voice that shows that he is a traditionalist or he is rooted in tradition. His experiments are like a new, his experiments are like something which are new possibilities invented within tradition. These are not, at least for me, these wouldn't be intelligible as natural extension of tradition, but as finding out new possibilities which are not like natural extensions of the tradition. So, for example, look at his Vanita Kavitotsava or Trailingaka. Vanita Kavitotsava is a play which has all poetesses as characters. I'm sure Ganesh didn't have any specific Rupaka in his mind under which he wanted to put Vanita Kavitotsava, because there is no such Rupaka where all characters are only females. But in spite of that, the very fact that the characters are traditional characters, are classical poets, and the diction of his drama show that he is rooted still in tradition, in spite of having invented a new genre of drama. Similarly, Trailingakam, about which I will discuss a little later. On the other hand, we have a lot of non-conformists who are rebellious in nature, who disown the tradition both in form and content, and their only link with the tradition is that they compose poetry in Sanskrit. Other than that, there is no link with tradition, neither in form nor in content. But there is a very curious feature about these non-conformists. These non-conformists always look up to traditional aesthetic categories such as rasa or dhvani in order to analyze their own poems. They are non-conformists with respect to everything else, but they always look up to Sahitya Shastra and look up to aesthetic categories such as rasa and dhvani in order to accord poetic status to their compositions, and in order to place their compositions in terms that agree with the aesthetics of Sanskrit. So this is an example of how Ganesh manages to blend Ananya Kshunna Margata with tradition. So I have taken a poem from his I have taken a verse from one of his poems, Lokayana Ashtanayika Ashtakam. So it is a Ashtakam. As the name suggests, it's an octad of verses, 8 verses on the bus. But the bus has been here conceived as a hero, and the poet calls it as Yaneshwara. The public transport bus is the hero, Nayaka, and the passenger, for example, Ganesh himself is the passenger, or any other passenger is the Nayika, is the heroine. So the bus is the Nayaka and the passenger is the Nayika. So let us look at one of these verses. So this is the verse which describes the Abhisarika Nayika. So many of you who are familiar with Sanskrit poetics know that there are 8 types of Nayikas, and one of those Nayikas is the Abhisarika Nayika. Who is an Abhisarika Nayika? An Abhisarika Nayika is one who goes to meet her lover at an appointed place, at an appointed time, and she is well dressed and well bedecked to meet her lover. Here, the poet brings this idea of Abhisarika Nayika within the context of a bus and a passenger. The verse is as follows. Nisthanam samaye samasta samayatitam samasadhyamat samagri sahita sabautukamaham salankritastrasakam kalakala vivadakirita jana lapam na krutva shrutau yanesham tvabhisarikeva sahasa sampraptu utkantita. So here the passenger is an Abhisarika Nayika. The passenger wants to go to the bus stop. So the bus stop is like the meeting place for the lovers. It is like the place of rendezvous, what we call in traditional Sanskrit as the Sanketa Sthana. And here is where the hero will meet with the hero. The hero will meet with the heroine. The bus stop is the Sanketa Sthana. When he has just left his home to go to the bus stop, there are people who discourage the Nayika. They tell the Nayika, why are you going to the bus stop? The bus never comes to the bus stop at time, or the route of the bus has been deviated. It's going somewhere else. So you don't go to the bus stop. you will never be able to catch the bus there. The bus will never come on time. And there are many people who discourage the Nayika. In the same way, in traditional poetry also, when an Abhisarika Nayika leaves her home and goes to meet her lover in the Sanketa, there are many people who might discourage the Nayika, saying that your Nayika has, in fact, loves somebody else. He doesn't have even a bit of love for you. And such words of discouragement are often uttered when an Abhisarika Nayika leaves her home and goes to the Sanketa Sthana. So the verse basically translates as disregarding the discouraging words of people, the well-dressed passenger. So the passengers are usually well-dressed because often the passengers go to their office and so they are just tip-top. So the well-dressed passenger, and the Abhisarika Nayika is often dressed very well because she has to go and meet her Nayaka. Like an Abhisarika Nayika reaches the stop, and the bus stop is like the place of meeting, the Sanketa Sthana. And the passenger reaches there at the designated time and eagerly awaits the bus, which is like the lover. Just like an Abhisarika Nayika goes to the Sanketa Sthana at the designated time. The Nayaka would have told her, you come to the Sanketa Sthana at a particular time. So the Abhisarika Nayika dresses herself gaudily and goes to the designated place at the designated time. Let us see what is traditional about this verse. Firstly, there is the choice of the Shardula Vikridita meter. So the poet has chosen a traditional meter, a very traditional meter, Shardula Vikridita, which has 19 letters in each line. Further, there is also a lot of anuprasa or alliteration in the verse. So the verse is Nisthanam samaye samasta samayatitam samasyamat samagri sahitastabhotukamaham salankritasprasakam. So you can hear this anuprasa of the sakara. The sa yanjana repeatedly hits your ear. And so there is a beautiful anuprasa here. So this anuprasa also betrays the fact that this is just a modern verse and shows that it is nestled within tradition. Further, the idea of Abhisarika Nayika itself shows that the poet is rooted in tradition. And the development of the idea of Abhisarika Nayika is also in consonance with how a traditional poet would have developed it. So designated place of meeting, or going well dressed, not caring for others' discouraging words, or eagerness, all these are part of the description of an Abhisarika Nayika even in tradition. And the same things have been brought by the poet with respect to the bus and the passenger. So what is new here? There are two things that are new here. One is the idea of the public transport bus as a hero and the passenger as a heroine. And the second is the passenger is the male. How do you know that it is a male? The verse has sampraptu mutkantitaha. So it shows that the passenger is a male. But the male passenger has been likened to a heroine, to a Nayika. And personally, for me, this enhances the vinoda, enhances the humor of this particular poem. Poet himself has an interesting footnote here. Nayika vibhaga vivekasya vastutattvam vishwajaninata. This classification of Ashtanayikas is very traditional, but the poet says that this classification can be extended even to the world of objects. For example, in this case, the bus can also become the hero. And these states can be experienced irrespective of gender, etc., gender and all other limitations. So, for example, here, the male has become the heroine. So this is very new. These are two new points in this idea which has been worked out ad nauseum by our ancient poets. Let us look at Ananya Kshunna Margata at the level of form and content with a few examples. So form. As I said, our poet Ganesh is very dhairyashali. If he had not had this dhairya, he wouldn't have even become an avadhani. Dhairya is something which is important for a person who aims at Ananya Kshunna Margata and also aims at becoming an avadhani. So our poet freely uses several pratyayas in Sanskrit. A traditional poet like me would think twice before using such pratyayas, but a poet like Ganesh, who is filled with dhairya, freely uses these pratyayas. Let me give two examples. You have this verse from Goshavati, 2 lines from this poem, Goshavati, on the lute of Udayana. Yadyat chakara chakilam tvai naidhuvanyam manye tadeva manitam swarilam bahuva. So you have the use of there are certain words which I have reddened, which I have which I have highlighted in the red color, Chakilam, Naidhuvanyam, and Swarilam. So Chakilam probably is derived from Vichakilam by removing the suffix, and probably indicates brilliant. And you have Naidhuvanyam. Nidhuvanasya bhavaha Naidhuvanyam. To my knowledge, I have never heard the use of Naidhuvanyam. This use is similar to the use of Triloki eva Trilokyam. In the same way, the poet has used Naidhuvanyam in the same sense as Nidhuvanam. Again, you have the use of Swarilam. So, by adding Ilach Pratyaya to Swara. And our poet is specifically fond of this Ilach Pratyaya and uses it at several instances and freely uses it. The second example is Klinna Twangila Bhanga Bhangila Vala Dvakralakam Vakada from Ujjwala Jwala. So you have the use of the word Twangila. As far as I can think, the word Twangila probably comes from the dhatu Twang, Twangati, to kampate, to tremble or to move up and down. So to that dhatu Twang, he has added ila and created a word Twangila. And obviously for the sound effect also, because you have Bhanga, Bhangila, etc. So Twangila will rhyme with Bhangila and create an Anuprasa effect, and that is why the poet has coined such a word. Next, you have several new coinages. To give few examples, Kala Keeladi Keelitamshu Nidanas Phalam Karomyatmani. You have the word Keeladi. Keeladi is similar to, say, Jaladhi or Kshiradi. And the poet describes Keeladi. The meaning of Keeladi, according to the poet, is Agni Sagara. Keela is Agni, and he uses it to refer to Sagara, just as in Kshiradi or Jaladi. In the same way, elsewhere he uses Ashrudhiyane Loke Kasmadivanu Vipake Natayati Ruchiramenam Suttaramukhi Van Mounam. He uses the words Ashrudhi and Suttaramukhi. So Ashrudhi, again, according to him, is Ashrumayha Sagara, in the same way as Keeladi, Jaladi or Kshiradi. And Uttaramukhi, the poet uses in the sense of mariner's compass. So he also coins several words, and these are not stray instances. These are present almost in every page of Ganesh's verses. You have Kantara Kanta. The word Kantara Kanta has been used by Ganesh in the sense of a Simha. And to my knowledge, the Kantara Kanta is not a word that can be found in the dictionary. It's a new coinage by Ganesh. Kantara Kanta Uchitapti Matavatapsid. So he describes this as Simha, the Kanta of Kantara, the lover of the forest. You have several unusual compounds that are used by Ganesh, often for their Shabdika effect also. Few examples. From Ujjwala Jwala, you have this line, Pashyanti Hridi Lajjitam Api Muda Romantha Romanchane. Romantha Romanchane is an unusual compound. Again, you have Nidra Kathora Natana. Again, these words coming together is something very rare in Nidra, Kathora, and Natana, Romantha and Romanchana. All these coming together to form a compound is very rare in classical Sanskrit. In similar words, in similar fashion, you have Utsaha Rasasya Rastya Ghana Rupam Arupa Samakriyanayam. So Arupa Samakriyanayam. Such very, abstract compounds are, you could say, the defining factor in several of Ganesh's poems. Dhirasikam Dhara Dhamani Raktam. So he describes Krishna as Dhara Dhamani Raktam. So the blood flowing in the arteries of the earth. So the earth, if it is compared to a maiden, so he is the blood flowing in the artery of earth. In other words, it actually suggests that he is the very life force of earth. But such a compound of Dhara Dhamani Raktam I'm sure is not at all found in traditional works. Similarly, you have Kare Kripta Sel Samastaha. So the use of Samasta as the Uttarapada of a Samasa is very rare. At least I don't know of any such examples in classical tradition where Samasta comes at the end of a compound. Coming to, he often prioritizes idea over form. And this, I feel, is because he is brimming with so many ideas that the ideas come one after the other in an ahamahamika fashion. And many times, they immediately take the form of a verse. So sometimes the form might be sacrificed for the sake of idea. So few examples can be given here. Krishne Bhaktithamukka Tyajati Karagatam Vallavitam Tathaiva. This is from Sri Krishnarpanam. So you find a Sati Saptami here. Krishne Bhakti. Bhakti, I'm a little unsure whether that is the Saptami Saptami Shatranta form. Maybe it is Vachati or Bruvati. I'm not very sure. But then the poet uses Bhakti, Krishne Bhakti, and that is the Sati Saptami. And then in the same line you have Tam Tyajati. So usually such a construction is not seen in tradition. So you have the entire thing. For example, you could have Evam Bruvanam Krishnam Vallavi Tyajati, but not Evam Bruvati Krishne Vallavi Tam Tyajati. Such a construction is not found. So combining Saptami Vibhakti with some other Vibhaktis in Saptamyanta is not found. Similarly, you have Krita Muralikaram. Krita Muralikaram is a very novel compound. Krita Muralikaram Kalita Setu Vivayata Varidhim Vipum from Vatsalya Gopalakam. This has been used by the poet probably to suggest Karakrita Muralikam. So Karakrita Muralikam has been used as Krita Muralikaram. Similarly, Manasanu Bhuya Patyotsavam Chutasati Katichid Dinani. The compound Chutasati in Ramanuraganagam. Usually the compound would be Chutasatika, but the poet has, as I said, taken liberty over the form because the idea is more important and has used the construction Chutasatihi. Similarly, Hatha Hridaya Tengitam Mayyapina Prushe. You have for the Ingitam. So the Ingitam has become Tengitam probably by combining the with E and making the Gunasanti, or probably out of oversight. Purita Chakita Netra Jyotibir Deepayantau Sakala Mamara Nari Narma Marme Juhava. These are two different padas of two different verses. So Purita Chakita Netra Jyotibi. So the word Jyotis in Tritiya Vibhakti would usually be Jyotirbi, but the poet uses Jyotibi. And similarly, Marmani, the Saptamyanta would be Marmani. So Sakala Mamara Nari Narma Marmani, but the poet uses Marme. We could actually forego a discussion on these small pitfalls because the poetry itself, the content of the poetry itself gives so much of joy to the connoisseur. So these are just small, so that my talk is unbiased. I have used some of these examples. So metrical novelty. You have metrical novelty also in Ganesh's verses, and I think he is one of the masters when it comes to Chanda Shastra. He has used a new meter called Suruchira. Rushatmano Dharaputa Damshanena Kimte. The te is missing there. So from Ujjvala Jwala, and he calls this meter as Suruchira. Similarly, you have Swatva Vismarana Yatna Yevame Nidhuvanam Daita Yatvayasa from Ujjvala Jwala. This is a Upajati which the poet has conceived by combining Rathottata and Priyambada meters. Similarly, he uses a Sangatya Vritta. Sangatya Vritta is something which is very common in Kannada, and he uses this in Sanskrit. And this has to be read like this. Dampatya Vicheda Mula Karanameva Bhushoda Palamadya Viditam Bhanabana Satvaram Bhavadiyan Veshanam Heturatra Grahanam. So he uses this Sangatya Vritta, and it creates a sort of humor, and therefore he has used it for a poem that has been titled Vinoda Sangatya. The content of the poem is also very humorous, and the Sangatya Vritta is in concordance with the content. Then you have several of his poems which are composed in the 14-line Shakespearean sonnet. One of them is Nagnata. He has also used Telugu meters such as Ataveladi and Tetagiti. One of his poems is Vayam Nagaravanaraha, where he uses these meters. Next, is there any novelty in his versification? So let us look at this. He often combines, at least in two places, he has combined dialogues with stage direction like phrases to create a dramatic effect. And let me give an example from Vatsalya Gopalakam. So the verse is as follows: Amba Sagadgadam Patati Pada Tale Ghatitanjalistata Krishna Ihasmi Vispurita Bashpa Yutekshana Purvakam Hasan Mataranamayaasinanu Kampitabahu Yugena Tam Parishvajya Kadushna Vakshasi Nidhaya Jarajjananim Pita Kvate. So you find that there are stage directions like phrases here. Sagadgadam Patati Padatale Ghatitanjalistata, etc. combined with dialogues. So such a combination, Amba, Krishna, Ihasmi, etc. Such a combination occurring within a verse is indeed very new, and I don't think there is any such example in traditional poetry. Coming to content, so he often chooses, or many times, he chooses novel themes for his poems. To give few examples, you have Sumanomayam, where he describes several flowers that don't find mention in traditional poetry. Ujjwala Jwala, where he describes love from a woman's standpoint. Athena Suktam, which is a hymn on the Greek goddess Athena, but composed in classical Sanskrit. Anujagrajam, which is a poem, I think, in the Shardula Vikridita meter on a sister's love for her brother. Trilingakam, and this is indeed a very novel experiment by Ganesh. It is on women and also on the LGBT community. There are also verses on the tape recorder, refrigerator, post box, borewell, bonsai plant, plastic bags, play of cards, etc. And these novel themes are found everywhere in Ganesh's collection of poems. He also uses less explored themes from Itihasa Purana. So, for example, you have Vaiphalya Phalam, where the story is about Vishwamitra and Menaka, an aspect of the story which has not been dealt with in detail by our traditional poets. Ramanuraganalam, which is the story of Uttarakanda, and as I told earlier, it has Rama as the focus. And Vatsalya Gopalakam, which deals with the Samanta Panchaka episode, the Surya Grahana episode, where Yashoda and Krishna meet. He also has provided a thematic framework for an anthology of verses by Sanskrit poetesses in his Vanita Kavitotsava. These verses are scattered here and there in several of our Subhashita texts, but he has provided a thematic framework and brought all these verses together. And it's in fact like an anthology. It is an anthology and at the same time a play. He has also provided a thematic framework for verses on the seasons, Rutu Kalyanam. So there have been several, you know that all Sanskrit poets, almost without exception, describe the Rutus. So what is so great about Ganesh's description of Rutus? What is great is that he fixes the background of this description in modern day Bangalore, and the description is not in terms of trodden paths by earlier poets. It's a very novel description, and he looks at how the seasons will manifest in a modern city like Bangalore, and shows that if we have the time to enjoy nature, even in a modern city like Bangalore, we can still enjoy the beauty of nature and beauty of the seasons amidst the concrete jungle. So novelty in ideas. So let me give you examples of novelty in ideas. Aitayita viraha vedana vikata spotakamimam mamatmagatam asphotaitumivendu prasarayati hastamashu hridayatale. This is from his collection of poems called as Ujjwala Jwala, several muktakas. The translation is as follows: Dear, the moon brings his hand or ray. Hastam moon means both hand as well as ray. The moon brings his hand or ray close to my heart, as if to burst the cracker of love loneliness which is placed therein. So in my heart, there is this sadness of the lone condition, love lone condition. So this sadness is like a cracker, and the moon is bringing his ray close to my heart in order to burst this cracker. In another sense, he wants to burst my heart itself, which is full of sadness. Aitaita kim twadiyam patram tu kevalam nahi tat tanmatram tenaham prakalpya naukam tarami viraha mahabdhim. So, my love, is this letter written by you just a piece of paper? Is this letter which you have written just a piece of paper? No, it isn't. Then what is it? I shall make a boat from this paper and cross the vast ocean of separation. So such a description of love letter being used as a boat, or even using a paper as a boat, is something which is very new. Yauvanavahana yane sauvarna swapna rajamargeshu nakvapi rakta deepa sarvatra dyotate haritdeepah. When we race through the highway of our golden dreams in the car of youth, Yauvana Vahana Yane, Sauvarna Swapna Rajamargeshu, highway of our golden dreams, Nakvapi Rakta Deepaha, there is no red signal anywhere. Sarvatra Dyotate Haritdeepaha, wherever we go, there is only green signal. So, novelty in expression, to give just one example, Tavachataka Prata Chakora Chushanam, Punida Garahura Sanavashikritam. So this is a collection, this is a verse from his poem called as Kavi Samaya. It combines two poetic conventions through Rupaka. So the two poetic conventions are that the Chataka depends upon the cloud for water, and the Chakora depends upon the moonlight for its sustenance. So it drinks moonlight basically. So he has made a Rupaka between Chataka and Chakora, and at the same time he has made Rupaka between the Nidhaga Samaya, that is the summer, as well as Rahu. And so he says the life of a Chataka, that is Chakora. So the Chataka itself is Chakora, and it is this life is under the mercy of the summer, that is Rahu. So he has very nicely brought two Kavi Samayas together and made Rupakas out of those Kavi Samayas. I'll just share a few personally favorite poems, verses and phrases with translations. Nishphalanyeva bijani yadi noktani bhutale Uptamekamapi prayah kotisha phaladayakam, from his Mukta Shukti. All seeds are useless or bear no fruits. Nishphalani eva bijani, as long as one does not sow them in the ground. Yadi noktani bhutale. Uptamekamapi, but even a single seed, Uptam, if it is sown, it bears fruits in hundreds. Kotisha phaladayakam. There is this beautiful phrase in one of his poems called as Shri Kalidasarpanam. It is in the last verse of Shri Kalidasarpanam. Nishkalidasamiti mastu dinam kadapi. It's a very beautiful phrase. May no day of mine be robbed of Kalidasa's poetry. Similarly, Chaya Prakasha Parivarjita Jivanoham Bhakno Bhavena Mihiranvaya Chakravarti. This is a soliloquy of Rama in the poem Ramanuraganalla. This is after the death of Lakshmana, and after Sita disappears in the earth. So now Rama is bereft of both Sita as well as Lakshmana, and he considers Sita as Chaya, his Chaya, as a shade, and Lakshmana as his Prakasha. And now that there is no Sita and no Lakshmana, the Rama feels that he is bereft of Chaya and Prakasha, bereft of shade and light. But the beauty of the poem does not end here. He uses a very beautiful adjective, Mihiranvaya Chakravarti, emperor of the sun rays. You all know that the sun is responsible for shade and light. So though he is the emperor of the sun's rays, he himself is now bereft of both shade and light, since fate has taken away both Sita and Lakshmana, who were like shade and light from him. So though he might be of sun's rays, Mihiranvaya Chakravarti, his life is doomed. So this is a very beautiful verse from Sri Krishna Arpanam. Visrabdham navanitam ashuruchiram hritva kvaliye dritam mata hanta samasta gopana vidhin janati vrindavane itham krishna vritha vishidita malam matkam muda hritguham ajnanandhatamo vritam vishasakrit sarvaira vedyo bhava. Where shall I? This is a dialogue between Krishna and the devotee. Basically, these are the words of the devotee himself. The devotee says, where shall I hide after stealing the butter? Mother Yashoda knows every nook and corner of Vrindavana. So he tells Krishna, don't grieve on this account. Don't feel sad, because Mother Yashoda knows every nook and corner of Vrindavana, and so you cannot hide anywhere after stealing butter. Don't feel sad, because, oh Krishna, you can enter my heart surely. My heart is filled with the dense darkness of ignorance, and if you enter my heart, no one will be able to find you there. This also suggests the extent of ignorance, the darkness of ignorance within the heart of the devotee. It is so dense that in 100 years, no one will be able to find Krishna if he were to hide there. So from Ritu Kalyanam, look how the poet innovatively uses English words also in Sanskrit verses. प्लास्टिक रसालनव पल्लव तोरणानि कांक्रीट वनीय गृहशाखि शुभान्ति नित्यं कालिंगबेल्पिकरुतानि लसन्ति किन्तु भृङ्गानभान्ति मशकामदयन्ति गात्रम्. So how is Bangalore? Bangalore is a concrete jungle. So it is concrete vaniya. It is concrete jungle. And there plastic mango leaves are there. So you know that plastic mango leaves are used to adorn the doorways of houses. Plastic mango leaves adorn the houses. And these houses are like mango trees. And the plastic mango leaves are like the mango leaves of an actual mango tree. And this whole city is like concrete jungle. And what is the Pikaruta? What is the sound? What is the cuckoo song there? The sound of calling bells is the cuckoo song. And do we have bees in Bangalore? No, not at all. Instead of bees, bees have been replaced by mosquitoes. And instead of bees thronging about our limbs, it is mosquitoes which bother us here. So mosquitoes have replaced bees. Coming to the next slide. उपदिशति सुखेन प्राप्त भाग्यो विरागम सलिलपतित एवोपैति नौकामहत्वम. This is from Vaibhalya Balam, and these are words spoken by Menaka to Vishwamitra. Menaka tells Vishwamitra that if somebody knows what Vairagya is, what renunciation is, it is actually she who knows Vairagya better than Vishwamitra himself. Why is it so? And the poet describes it very beautifully. It is easy to preach dispassion from someone been exposed to enjoyment. Vishwamitra has never been exposed to enjoyment. He is always doing tapas. And for such a person, it is very easy to preach vairagya, preach dispassion or renunciation. But only a drowning person like me, only a person who is immersed in material enjoyment can actually know what is the importance of dispassion. Only a drowning person knows the real value of a boat. The next verse is Vikramena vina pumsam shmashruna kevalena kim bibhatsa bhirava shmashrumantopi tailapaha. So what is the use of a man's mustache in the absence of courage? If there is no courage, what is the use of just having a mustache? Even cockroaches, which are disgusting, timid and lowly creatures, have mustaches. अंतर्बहिश्च विलसद्रघुराम सेवा प्राणानिलोथ जनपालक दण्डदीर्णः प्राणाहत स्वयमिवेति विचिन्त्य पश्चात् कायं प्रबुद्धैव तल्पतलं च हंसः. So this is a verse from Ramanuraganam. This describes a situation where Lakshmana voluntarily gives up his body in the Sarayu river. So till now, Lakshmana was rendering service to Rama, and rendering service to Rama was actually like the life breath of Lakshmana. There was no life to Lakshmana. There is no life to Lakshmana if he doesn't render service to Rama. Now he has been robbed of it. Now, because of a shapa, Lakshmana cannot render service to Rama. So not rendering service means he's been deprived of his life itself. So now he's been deprived of his life breath. So he thought that he will discard this body also. If the life breath is gone, what is the use of having the body? So the poet uses a beautiful upama there. How did he abandon his body? He abandoned his body just like an awake person abandons his cot. So kayam prabuddha iva talpatalam. Just like a person who has awakened abandons his cot, abandons the bed. In the same way, Saumitri, that is Lakshmana, abandoned his body because there is no life breath in it, and there is no meaning in continuing with the body. So I'll end with a Chitrakavya. This is a verse that has been quoted in his recent publication on the art and science of Avadhanam. This is a Chitrakavya, and he composed it on the spot. So this is a Ardha Brahma verse on Radha. I will not go into the translation of the verse. Suffice to say that it is very difficult to compose Ardha Brahmaka even if we sit at home thinking for eons together. And this he composed within the span of 3 hours in his Avadhanam. Gopakara Shire Vabha Papa Radha Swasvabhava Karavasa Bhakta Sware Radha Sara Shobhasvashrihi. This is the verse. So you look at the first line. The first line is in red. Gopakara Shire Vaba. Look at the second diagram. Second diagram of 8 by 4 squares, and look at vertically the red portion that have been marked vertically. So you can see that whatever is horizontal is also readable vertically. So vertically you can read Gopakara in red, and the fourth on the right end you have Shire Vabha if you read from below upwards. In the same way, Paparadha Swaswa Bhava is in green horizontally. In the second picture, you see that the same is vertically. So you can read every line either horizontally or vertically. And it is indeed very difficult to compose such verses, verses even for a Mahakavi. And all namaskarams to Shatabdani Ganesh that he was able to do this within the span of 3 hours in an avadhanam. With this, I end my talk. Thanks. Thank you.